When a mafia boss known for ending lives with a single word finds himself unable to breathe the moment a flour-covered baker smiles at him, the entire underworld should be terrified. Damien Moretti has built an empire on fear, but the woman who just crashed into his carefully controlled world with a croissant and zero survival instinct might be the only thing powerful enough to destroy him. This is the story of how a blind date neither of them wanted became the one thing both of them would kill to keep. If you want to see how far love can reach when it collides with danger, stay until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The cafe smelled like burnt espresso and disappointment. Damien Moretti had been sitting by the window for exactly 4 minutes, which was 3 minutes and 59 seconds longer than he typically tolerated wasting on anything that didn't involve money, power, or eliminating problems. The table was small, the chair was uncomfortable, and the entire situation was beneath him. He'd only shown up because his younger sister had begged, actually begged, and Damien Moretti did not know how to say no to the only person in the world who still looked at him like he was human. Just one coffee, she'd pleaded over the phone 2 days ago. Just meet her. You're going to die alone in that penthouse surrounded by nothing but expensive furniture and people who are afraid of you. Sounds perfect, he'd replied. Damien. He'd gone silent. When his sister used that tone, the one that reminded him of their mother, he lost. So now he sat in this aggressively cheerful cafe with its chalkboard menus and mismatched furniture, wearing a suit that cost more than most people's cars, waiting for some woman named Claire who was apparently exactly his type, which he seriously doubted, considering his sister had no idea what his type was. Damien didn't have a type. He had transactions. He had arrangements. He had a rotation of beautiful women who understood that dinner meant dinner and nothing else, who didn't ask questions, who disappeared when dismissed. He checked his watch. 5 minutes now. He'd give it 2 more, then leave. The door burst open. A woman stumbled through it like she'd been shoved from behind by an invisible hand, her shoulder catching the doorframe, her bag swinging wild and nearly taking out a customer's latte. She was breathing hard, her face flushed, and she was covered in what appeared to be flour. Not a light dusting. Covered. Her dark hair had pulled loose from whatever had been restraining it, and there was a smudge of something white across her left cheekbone. She wore jeans with a rip in one knee that looked accidental rather than fashionable, and a shirt with a logo that said Rise and Grind Bakery across the chest. She spotted him immediately. Her eyes went wide. Damien watched, expression carefully neutral, as she froze in the doorway, looked behind her like she was considering escape, then squared her shoulders and walked toward him with the determined energy of someone heading into battle. She stopped at his table. "Hi," she said. "You're the date, right?" Damien said nothing. He simply looked at her, taking in the flour, the breathlessness, the obviously wrong everything about this situation. "Right," she continued, not waiting for an answer. "Okay. So, full disclosure, I'm not Claire." "I can see that. She had an emergency, family thing. She called me in a panic because apparently standing someone up is like a moral crisis for her, which honestly is kind of sweet, but also incredibly inconvenient for me because I was in the middle of a sourdough bulk ferment, and those things are temperamental as hell." She stopped, took a breath. "Sorry, I'm rambling. I do that when I'm nervous or uncomfortable or when I've had too much coffee, which I definitely have today." Damien continued staring at her. Most people wilted under his stare. It was a weapon he'd perfected over years, the kind of look that made grown men confess to things they hadn't even done yet. This woman just stared back. "So," she said, "I'm Isla Monroe, Claire's friend. She basically begged me to come tell you in person that she couldn't make it, because apparently texting is rude, which I personally think is insane because this," she gestured at herself, at him, at the space between them, "this is so much worse than a text would have been. But here we are." "Here we are," Damien repeated, his voice flat. Isla shifted her weight from one foot to the other. "I'm supposed to stay for like 10 minutes, to make it less awful. Her words, not mine, so I'll just..." She pulled out the chair across from him and sat down, dropping her bag on the floor with a heavy thump. "I'll just sit here, and we can both suffer through this together, and then I can go back to my starter before it dies of neglect." Damien leaned back in his chair, studying her with the same intensity he used when evaluating whether someone was lying to him. "You're a baker." "Wow, the shirt gave it away? You must be a detective." The corner of his mouth twitched. He caught it, stopped it. Isla seemed to notice anyway. Her eyes narrowed slightly, like she was trying to figure out if she'd imagined it. "What kind of bakery?" he asked. Not because he cared, but because he wanted to see how long she'd keep talking. Most people, when faced with his silence, filled it desperately. It told him things. "The kind that makes bread," Isla said, "and pastries. Croissants, mostly. I'm kind of obsessed with croissants, like unhealthily obsessed. I've been working on the same recipe for 2 years, and I'm still not happy with the lamination on the outer layers. It's driving me insane." "Sounds terrible." "It really is." She said it without irony, like she truly meant it. Like the imperfect lamination on a croissant was a legitimate source of suffering. Damien found himself leaning forward slightly. "Why croissants?" Isla blinked. "What? You could make anything. Why obsess over something so specific?" She was quiet for a moment, and Damien saw something shift in her expression, something thoughtful breaking through the nervous energy. "Because they're really hard to get right," she said finally. "And when you do get them right, when you pull them out of the oven and they're perfect, golden and crispy and layered exactly the way they're supposed to be, it feels like you've done something that matters." Which I know sounds dramatic for a pastry, but I don't know. "I like things that require attention, things that fall apart if you're not careful." Damien's chest did something strange. A tightness he didn't recognize. He ignored it. "How long have you been baking?" "Professionally, 3 years, but I've been baking since I was a kid. My grandmother taught me. She made the best apple pie I've ever had in my life, and I've spent the last decade trying to recreate it, and I still can't get the crust right. It's like she took the secret with her when she died." Isla's expression softened. "Sorry, that got depressing fast." "It's fine." "Is it? Because you look like you're calculating the fastest way to leave this conversation." Damien almost smiled again. "Almost. I'm always calculating that. That's bleak." "It's efficient," Isla laughed. It was a bright surprise sound that didn't match the tired cafe or Damien's dark suit or anything about the situation they were in. "Okay, so what do you do? Besides sit in cafes looking like you're about to fire someone?" "I run a business." "What kind of business?" "The kind that requires attention," Damien said, throwing her words back at her. Isla's eyes lit up with something that looked like amusement. "Wow, mysterious. Are you a spy? A hitman? One of those guys who flips houses on TV?" "None of those." "You're really not going to tell me, are you?" "No, that's fair. We did just meet. And technically, I'm not even supposed to be here. You're supposed to be having coffee with Claire, who is lovely, by the way. She's a kindergarten teacher. She does that thing where she gets down on one knee to talk to kids at their eye level. It's adorable." Damien's jaw tightened. "She sounds perfect." "She is. You would have hated her." He looked up sharply. "Excuse me?" Isla leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Come on. You're sitting here like you're being held hostage. You checked your watch twice before I even sat down. You don't want to be here. Claire would have tried so hard to make this work, and you would have been polite but distant, and she would have gone home thinking she did something wrong when really you just don't want to date anyone." Damien said nothing. "Am I wrong?" Isla asked. "No." "Then why did you show up?" It was a good question. Damien didn't have a good answer, or rather, he had an answer, but it involved admitting that his sister's opinion still mattered to him, which was a weakness he didn't acknowledge. "Family obligation," he said finally. Isla nodded slowly. "Okay, I can respect that." They sat in silence for a moment. It should have been awkward. Damien was used to silences being awkward, being weapons he wielded to make people uncomfortable enough to leave. But this silence felt different. Isla didn't fidget. She didn't pull out her phone or look around desperately for an escape. She just sat there, flowers still on her face, looking at him like he was a puzzle she was trying to solve but wasn't particularly worried about. "Can I ask you something?" she said eventually. "You're going to anyway." "True," she smiled. "Do you actually want coffee? Because you've been sitting here for—" She glanced at his empty table. "However long, and you haven't ordered anything." Damien looked at the counter where a bored barista was scrolling through her phone. He looked back at Isla. No. Great. Me neither. Coffee afternoon makes me jittery, and I've already had 3 cups today, which was a mistake. She stood up, grabbing her bag. Well, this has been weird. I'm going to go back to work now. Thanks for not being a complete asshole about the whole surprise replacement situation. She turned to leave. Damien spoke before he understood why. Wait. Isla stopped, looked back. Yeah? He didn't know what he was doing. This woman was covered in flour, talked too much, had been sent here by mistake, and had absolutely nothing to do with his world. He should let her leave. He should walk out of this cafe, forget this ever happened, and return to his carefully controlled life. Instead, he said, "You mentioned croissants." Isla's eyebrows rose. I did. The ones you've been working on for 2 years. Yes? Are they good? She tilted her head, studying him. They're pretty good. Just pretty good? I'm my own worst critic, but yeah, they're good. Why? Damien stood. He was taller than her by several inches, and he saw her eyes widen slightly as he rose to his full height. I want to try one. Now? Now. Isla stared at him. The bakery's 20 minutes from here. I have a car. I have flour all over me. I noticed. You're serious. I don't make jokes. Isla laughed again, that same surprised, genuine sound. Okay, sure, why not? Let's go eat croissants with a complete stranger who won't tell me what he does for a living. This is either going to be a great story or a terrible decision. It could be both, Damien said. Oh, I like that answer. Isla gestured toward the door. After you, mysterious businessman. Damien walked past her, and as he did, he caught the scent of vanilla and butter and something warm he couldn't name. It shouldn't have affected him. He'd been around plenty of women who wore expensive perfumes designed specifically to be intoxicating, but this wasn't perfume. This was just her, flour and warmth and something completely unintentional. His driver was waiting outside, leaning against a black sedan that cost more than most people's yearly salary. Marcus straightened when he saw Damien, his expression carefully neutral even as his eyes flicked to Isla with obvious curiosity. Marcus, Damien said, we're going to Rise and Grind Bakery. Marcus's eyebrows rose a fraction of an inch, which for Marcus was the equivalent of shocked disbelief. Sir? You heard me. Yes, sir. Isla was staring at the car. Okay, so you're rich. That's the mysterious thing. You're rich, and you didn't want to say it because people get weird about money. Something like that, Damien said, which wasn't true at all, but was easier than explaining that he ran half the organized crime in the city. Marcus opened the back door. Damien gestured for Isla to get in first. She hesitated. Is the flour going to ruin your fancy car? It's fine. Are you sure? Because this looks like the kind of car that costs more than my entire life. Get in, Isla. She got in, moving carefully like she was afraid to touch anything. Damien slid in beside her, and Marcus closed the door behind them. The interior smelled like leather and expensive cologne. His cologne, which his assistant ordered in bulk because Damien wore the same thing every day. Isla looked around, taking in the pristine interior, the privacy screen, the small bar built into the side panel. This is insane, she said. Do you always travel like this? Yes. That must be exhausting. Damien frowned. What? Never getting to just be normal. Walk places, take the train, blend in. No one had ever suggested his life might be exhausting. Dangerous, yes. Powerful, absolutely. Enviable, constantly. But exhausting? That implied he was carrying something heavy, which implied weakness, which was unacceptable. I don't need to blend in, he said. Right. Because you're rich and mysterious. Isla was smiling, but it wasn't mocking. It was almost fond. Like she was amused by him, but in a way that didn't feel insulting. Damien didn't know what to do with that. The drive to the bakery took 18 minutes. Isla spent most of it talking. She told him about the bulk ferment she'd abandoned, about her coworker who kept trying to convince her to make gluten-free options, which is fine, but it's not real bread, you know? About the customer who came in every Tuesday and ordered the same blueberry muffin and always tried to pay with a $100 bill, like he was hoping they wouldn't have change. Damien listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't check his phone, even though it buzzed 3 times in his pocket. He just listened to this woman who talked with her hands, who got passionate about starter hydration levels, who seemed completely unaware that she was sitting next to one of the most dangerous men in the city. When they pulled up outside Rise and Grind, Isla turned to him. Okay, so full disclosure again. The bakery's kind of a mess right now. We're short-staffed and I left in the middle of prep, so it's going to be chaotic. I don't care. You say that now. She got out of the car before Marcus could open the door for her. Damien followed, and Marcus gave him a look that very clearly said, "What the hell are you doing?" Damien ignored him. The bakery was small, crammed between a dry cleaner and a used bookstore. The windows were fogged with condensation, and through them, Damien could see a chaotic space filled with metal racks, flour-dusted surfaces, and 2 people moving frantically around each other. Isla pushed through the door, and a bell chimed. "I'm back," she called. "Crisis averted. The date was a bust, but I picked up a stray businessman, so that's something." A tall guy with bleached hair and flour up to his elbows looked up from a mixing bowl. His eyes went to Damien, and his entire expression changed. "Holy shit! This is Marcus," Isla said, gesturing at the tall guy. "Not your Marcus, my Marcus. He's the other baker, and that's Priya, our front-of-house person who is also filling in on prep because, like I said, short-staffed." Priya, a small woman with dark hair pulled into a tight bun, waved without looking up from the dough she was shaping. "Hi, stray businessman. His name is—" Isla paused, looked at Damien. "I just realized I don't know your name." "Damien." "Damien, cool. Very mysterious villain in a romance novel." Marcus the baker made a choking sound. Isla looked at him. "What?" "Nothing. Just, Marcus was staring at Damien like he'd seen a ghost. "You brought Damien Moretti to our bakery." Isla frowned. "Yeah, and?" "And—" Marcus looked at Priya for help. Priya had stopped shaping dough. She was also staring at Damien now, her eyes wide. Isla looked between them, clearly confused. "Okay, what am I missing?" Damien sighed. This was why he didn't do things like this. This was why he stayed in his world, surrounded by people who knew exactly who he was and were too afraid to react. "You really don't know?" Marcus asked Isla, his voice pitched slightly higher than normal. "Know what?" "Who he is." Isla looked at Damien. "He's a businessman. He runs a business that requires attention. He has a fancy car and apparently a driver named Marcus, which is a funny coincidence. What else is there to know?" Marcus the baker opened his mouth, and Damien gave him a look that made the words die in his throat. "Nothing," Marcus said weakly. "Nothing else." Isla narrowed her eyes. "You're being weird." "I'm always weird." "Weirder than usual." Priya cleared her throat. "Isla, honey, maybe you should—" "Croissants," Damien interrupted. "You promised me croissants." Isla's attention snapped back to him. "Right. Yes. Croissants, come on." She grabbed his wrist, actually grabbed his wrist, her flour-covered hand wrapping around his expensive watch, and pulled him toward the back. Damien let her. Behind them, he heard Priya whisper, "Is she insane?" And Marcus the baker whisper back, "I think she might be." The back of the bakery was even more chaotic than the front. Every surface was covered with bowls, bags of flour, rolling pins, and sheet trays. The oven was radiating heat that made the small space feel like a sauna, and there was a radio playing something upbeat that clashed violently with the organized chaos. Isla released his wrist and went to one of the cooling racks. She grabbed a croissant, put it on a small plate, and handed it to him. "Okay," she said, "this is from this morning's batch. It's not warm anymore, but it should still be good. The real test is the lamination. You want to see distinct layers, and you want it to be crispy on the outside, but soft and buttery on the inside. If it's doughy in the middle, I messed up the proof. If it's too dry, I overbaked it. If it tastes weird, it's probably the butter. I've been experimenting with European-style butter, and sometimes it has a slightly different flavor profile that doesn't work with—" She stopped. "Sorry, rambling again. Just try it." Damien looked at the croissant. It was golden brown, slightly glossy, and when he picked it up, it was lighter than he expected. He tore off a piece, and it pulled apart in perfect, delicate layers. He put it in his mouth. The flavor hit him immediately. Butter, yes, but not overwhelming. A slight sweetness, a complexity he hadn't expected. The texture was perfect, crispy on the outside, soft and almost cloud-like on the inside. He'd eaten in Michelin-starred restaurants. He'd had private chefs prepare elaborate meals. He'd tasted things most people would never even hear about. This was better. Well? Isla was watching him with an expression that was trying to be casual but was clearly anxious. Is it good? It's perfect, Damien said. Isla's entire face lit up. Really? Yes. You're not just saying that? I don't just say things. She laughed, and the sound filled the cramped hot kitchen in a way that made everything else disappear. Okay, cool, great. Thank you. That actually means a lot because I've been torturing myself over these things for months, and it's good to hear that someone who isn't legally obligated to be nice to me thinks they're decent. They're not decent, they're perfect, Damien repeated. Isla's cheeks flushed. Okay, you can stop now, or I'm going to develop an ego. You should. What? Damien gestured at the croissant, at the kitchen, at everything around them. You're good at this. You should have an ego about it. Isla stared at him. That might be the nicest thing anyone said to me in months. That's depressing. Welcome to my life. She grabbed another croissant from the rack and took a bite. So, mysterious businessman who won't tell me what he does but will compliment my pastries. What's your story? I don't have a story. Everyone has a story. Mine's boring. I doubt that. Damien looked at her, this woman with flour on her face and warmth in her eyes, and he felt something crack inside him, something he'd kept carefully sealed for years. Why do you care? Isla tilted her head. Because you're interesting, and because you came all the way here to try a croissant, which is either very sweet or slightly insane, and I can't figure out which. Both, Damien said. Yeah. Isla smiled. I'm starting to think that. They stood there in the hot kitchen, and Damien realized with absolute clarity that he was in trouble. This woman, this baker with her imperfect croissants and her rambling and her complete lack of fear, was dangerous in a way that had nothing to do with weapons or power. She made him want things he'd stopped wanting years ago. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call. He pulled it out, saw the name on the screen, and his expression went cold. I have to go, he said. Isla's smile faded. Oh, okay. Thank you for the croissant. Yeah, sure, any time. Damien walked toward the door, then stopped. He turned back. Can I come back? Isla blinked. What? Can I come back? To try more? You want to come back to this disaster of a bakery to eat more croissants? Yes. Isla's smile returned, smaller this time, but somehow warmer. Yeah, you can come back. Damien nodded once, then left. Marcus was waiting by the car, his expression carefully blank. He opened the door without a word. As they pulled away from the bakery, Damien looked back. Through the fogged window, he could see Isla's silhouette, could see her moving back into the chaos of her kitchen. Sir, Marcus said carefully, if I may, you may not. Understood. They drove in silence back to Damien's building, a glass and steel tower in the financial district that housed his penthouse on the top floor. Damien rode the private elevator up, walked into his pristine apartment with its floor-to-ceiling windows and expensive furniture and absolute silence, and he hated it. For the first time in years, he hated the emptiness. His phone rang again. He answered. You missed the meeting, a voice said. Vincent, his second-in-command, sounded annoyed. Reschedule it. Damien, I said reschedule it. He hung up. Then he stood at the window looking down at the city and thought about flour-covered hands and perfect croissants, and a woman who didn't know she'd just walked into the most dangerous man's life and made him want to be someone different. The next morning, Damien woke up at 5:30, the same time he always did. He went through his routine, shower, suit, coffee, with mechanical precision. By 6:15, he was in his office, reviewing reports that Vincent had left on his desk. By 6:45, he was thinking about croissants. This was unacceptable. He had work, he had meetings, he had an entire empire that ran on his attention and control, and he was sitting here thinking about a bakery. At 7, he stood up, grabbed his jacket, and told Marcus to take him to Rise and Grind. Marcus didn't ask questions. He just drove. The bakery wasn't open yet when they arrived, but through the window, Damien could see lights on in the back. He got out of the car and knocked on the glass door. A moment later, Priya appeared. Her eyes went wide when she saw him. She unlocked the door slowly. "We don't open until 7:30. "I know." "So, is Isla here?" Priya hesitated, then called over her shoulder. "Isla, you have a visitor!" There was a crash from the back, followed by muffled swearing. Then Isla appeared, wearing the same rise and grind shirt as yesterday, but with different flour stains. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she had a smudge of chocolate on her cheek this time instead of flour. She saw Damien and stopped. "Oh, hi. Hi, Pai. You're here early. You said I could come back." "I meant during normal business hours, maybe with some advance notice." "I don't give advance notice." Isla looked at Priya. "Can you give us a minute?" Priya nodded and disappeared into the back, though Damien was fairly certain she was going to stand just out of sight and listen to everything. Isla crossed her arms, and Damien noticed the way she was trying not to smile. "So, mysterious businessman who shows up at dawn demanding pastries. This is becoming a pattern. Is that a problem?" "I don't know yet. Are you dangerous?" "Yes," Damien thought, "extremely." "No," he said. Isla studied him for a long moment, and Damien had the strange sensation that she could see through him, that she knew he was lying but had decided not to care. "Okay," she said finally. "Come on back. I just pulled some almond croissants out of the oven, and they need a taste tester." She turned and walked toward the kitchen, and Damien followed. This, he realized, was how it was going to be. This was how she was going to pull him out of his carefully controlled world, one croissant at a time, until he was someone he didn't recognize anymore. And the terrifying part was that he wanted her to. The almond croissants were still warm when Isla set one in front of him on the same flour-dusted counter where she'd been working. Damien had removed his jacket and rolled up his sleeves, which felt strange and uncomfortable, like he was shedding armor in enemy territory. But Isla had looked at his pristine suit and said, "You're going to get almond paste on that if you're not careful." And somehow he'd just done it. "Okay, so these are different from yesterday," Isla was saying, already talking with her hands again, gesturing at the croissant like it was evidence in a trial. "The almond cream is homemade, obviously, because the store-bought stuff tastes like chemicals and sadness. I toast the almonds first, which adds depth, and then I mix them with butter, sugar, and just a tiny bit of almond extract. Some people go heavy on the extract, but I think that's a mistake. It should be subtle. A whisper, not a scream." Damien picked up the croissant. It was heavier than yesterday's plain one, the top dusted with powdered sugar and sliced almonds. "A whisper, not a scream," he repeated. "Exactly. You get it." Isla leaned against the counter, watching him with that same anxious but trying not to show it expression she'd had yesterday. He took a bite. The almond cream was perfect. Rich but not overwhelming. Sweet but balanced by the butter in the pastry. The croissant itself had the same delicate layers, the same golden crisp exterior. "Well," Isla asked, "you should open your own place." Isla laughed, but it sounded different this time. Tired. "Yeah, that's the dream, someday. When I win the lottery or discover a pile of money buried in my apartment, or something equally realistic." "I'm serious." "So am I. Do you know what it costs to open a bakery in this city? Even a small one?" She shook her head. "I've been saving for 3 years and I'm not even close. Plus I'd need investors, a business plan, all this stuff I have no idea how to do. I'm good at baking. I'm terrible at everything else." Damien set down the croissant. "What if someone invested in you?" Isla's expression shifted, became guarded. "Is that an offer? Would you accept it if it was?" "No." "Why not?" She pushed off the counter, putting distance between them. "Because I don't know you. You show up here 2 days in a row, you won't tell me what you actually do, and now you're talking about investing in my hypothetical bakery. That's weird, Damien. That's serial killer level weird." He should have been offended. Instead, he almost smiled. "Fair point. Thank you. But I'm not a serial killer." That's exactly what a serial killer would say. This time he did smile, just slightly. Isla noticed. Her eyes widened a fraction, like she'd witnessed something rare and wasn't sure if she should acknowledge it. "Oh my God," she said. "You smiled. Actual smile. I'm putting that in my journal." "You keep a journal?" "No, but I'm starting one just so I can document this moment." She grabbed another croissant from the cooling rack and bit into it, speaking around the mouthful. "So if you're not going to tell me what you do, at least tell me why you keep coming here." "The croissants." "Bullshit." Damien raised an eyebrow. Isla swallowed, wiped powdered sugar from her lips. "Sorry, but yeah, bullshit. There are 100 bakeries in this city, probably 20 within walking distance of wherever you live. You're not coming here at dawn for croissants, so what is it?" He could lie. He was good at lying. He'd built an empire on knowing exactly what to say and when to say it. But looking at Isla, with her flour-stained shirt and her direct stare, and her complete unwillingness to let him hide behind vague answers, he found he didn't want to lie. "I don't know," he said. Isla blinked. "What?" "I don't know why I keep coming here. I just know that I want to." The kitchen went quiet except for the hum of the industrial refrigerator and the distant sound of Priya and Marcus the baker talking in the front. Isla set down her croissant. "That's either really honest or a really good line." "It's honest." "Okay." She studied him for a long moment. "Okay, then here's what we're going to do. You're going to come back tomorrow, same time, and I'm going to have coffee ready. Real coffee, not the burnt crap from out front. And we're going to sit here and have an actual conversation where you tell me at least 3 real things about yourself that aren't vague businessman nonsense. And then maybe I'll believe that you're not a serial killer or a con artist or whatever other terrible thing my brain is trying to convince me you might be. 3 things. 3 things? Non-negotiable." Damien should have said no. He should have walked out, gotten in his car, and never come back. This woman was already getting too close, asking too many questions, making him feel things he'd spent years learning not to feel. "Deal," he said. Isla smiled. "Good. Now get out of my kitchen. I have 8 dozen dinner rolls to shape before we open, and you're distracting me." "How am I distracting you?" "You're taking up space and looking all mysterious and brooding. It's very distracting. Go brood somewhere else." Damien stood, grabbed his jacket. As he walked toward the door, Isla called after him. "Hey, Damien." He turned. "Thanks for liking the croissants, really. It means something." He nodded once, then left. In the car, Marcus said, "The bakery again tomorrow, sir?" "Yes." "Should I clear your morning meetings?" "Yes." Marcus was quiet for a moment, then said carefully, "Sir, if I may, you may not." But this time, Damien caught Marcus smiling in the rearview mirror. The rest of the day was a blur of meetings, phone calls, and problems that needed solving. Damien handled them all with his usual efficiency, but part of his mind kept drifting back to the bakery, to Isla's challenge. 3 real things about himself. What qualified as real? What was he supposed to tell her? That he ran an organization responsible for half the crime in the city? That people feared him more than they feared the police? That he'd done things that would make her run if she knew? He couldn't tell her any of that, but he couldn't keep lying either. Not to her. By the time he got home that night, he still hadn't figured it out. His penthouse was dark and silent when he walked in. He poured himself a drink, stood at the window overlooking the city, and thought about a small bakery with fogged windows and a woman who thought powdered sugar on your face was perfectly acceptable. His phone rang. His sister. "You're alive," she said when he answered. "I was starting to worry you'd ghosted me because the blind date was that bad." "It wasn't bad." "Really?" "Claire said she had to cancel. Did they send someone else?" Damien hesitated. "Something like that." "And?" "And what?" "And are you going to see her again?" His sister's voice was hopeful in a way that made his chest tight. "Maybe." "Damien Moretti, did you just say maybe, not no? Not this is pointless and I'm too busy?" "I said maybe." His sister was quiet for a moment. "Who is she?" "No one. Just someone I met. Someone you want to see again." "Maybe." "You said maybe twice. This is unprecedented. I need details immediately." "No." "Damien, good night, Sophia." He hung up before she could press further, but he was smiling slightly as he did it. The next morning, he arrived at the bakery at 6:45. This time, the door was unlocked. He walked in to find Isla already waiting, 2 mugs of coffee on the counter, and a plate of what looked like chocolate pastries between them. "You're late," she said. "It's 6:45. 6. I've been here since 4. Relatively speaking, you're late." She pushed one of the mugs toward him. "Black coffee, right? You seem like a black coffee person." He was. He sat down on the stool across from her. "How did you know?" "Lucky guess. Also, you have that whole I don't need anything to soften my life vibe going on." She took a sip of her own coffee, which appeared to be more cream than coffee. "So, 3 things. Go." Damien wrapped his hands around the mug. It was warm, almost too hot, and the sensation grounded him. "My sister set up the blind date." "That's one. Keep going." "I told her I didn't want to go. She guilt-tripped me into it." Isla's lips twitched. "Siblings are good at that." "What's her name?" "Sophia." "Older or younger?" "Younger, by 8 years." "Let me guess. You're wildly overprotective, and she thinks it's both annoying and sweet." Damien said nothing, which was answer enough. Isla grinned. "Called it." "Okay, that's one thing. 2 more." He took a drink of the coffee. It was strong, good, better than anything his expensive machine at home produced. "I live alone." "That's not really a thing. That's just a fact. Tell me something real." "What's the difference?" "A fact is, I live alone. A real thing is, I live alone and I hate it, or I live alone and I love it, or I live alone because I'm secretly a vampire. Give me something with texture." Damien looked at her over the rim of his mug. "I live alone because it's easier." "Easier than what?" "Than letting people in." Isla went still. The playful energy that usually surrounded her dimmed slightly, and her expression became something softer, more serious. "Okay, that's real. Thank you." "You're welcome." One more. This was harder. He'd already given her more than he'd given anyone in years, but she was watching him with those eyes that seemed to see past every wall he'd built, and he found himself saying, "I don't remember the last time I wanted to talk to someone." "What do you mean?" "I mean, most conversations are transactions. I need something, or someone needs something from me. It's business, it's strategy. It's never just talking." He set down the mug. "But with you, I want to talk." "I don't know why." Isla was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached across the counter and grabbed one of the chocolate pastries, breaking it in half and handing him a piece. "Okay, your turn." "My turn for what?" "To ask me 3 things. Fair is fair." Damien took the pastry. "Why croissants?" "I already told you that." "Tell me again, the real version." Isla looked down at her coffee. "My grandmother died when I was 16. She was the only person who really got me, you know? Everyone else wanted me to be something I wasn't. Quieter, neater, more together. But she loved that I was messy and loud and obsessed with getting things perfect, even when I kept screwing them up." She paused. "The last thing she made before she died was croissants. She was teaching me, but she died before we finished. So I've been trying to finish them ever since. Trying to make them the way she would have made them." Damien's chest did that strange tightening thing again. "Have you?" "I don't know. I think she'd like them. But I'll never know for sure, which kind of drives me crazy." Isla looked up at him. "That's one. 2 more." "Why baking?" "Because it's the only thing I've ever been good at. I tried college, hated it, tried a bunch of different jobs, was terrible at all of them. But baking makes sense to me. You follow the recipe, you pay attention, you care about what you're making, and it turns into something good. It's simple. Everything else in my life is complicated, but baking is simple." "Nothing about baking seems simple," Isla smiled. "Okay, fine. It's hard, but simple. There's a difference." "What's the difference?" "Hard means it takes work. Simple means you know what you're working toward. Most things in life are hard and complicated. You don't know where you're going, you don't know if you're doing it right, you just kind of stumble around hoping it works out. But with baking, you know. You follow the steps and you get bread. It might not be perfect bread, but it's bread. There's something comforting about that." Damien understood that more than he wanted to admit. His entire life was hard and complicated. He never knew who to trust, never knew which move would backfire, never knew when someone would try to take him down. But sitting in this bakery, Drinking coffee with a woman who smelled like vanilla and talked about bread like it was philosophy felt simple. Last question, Isla prompted. Are you always this honest with strangers? No. She said it quietly, seriously. Actually, I'm usually terrible at it. I say too much or not enough, and I get anxious, and I ramble, which you've probably noticed. But with you, she trailed off, shook her head. I don't know. You make it easy. They looked at each other across the counter, and something shifted, something neither of them acknowledged, but both of them felt. The moment broke when Marcus the baker pushed through from the front, saw them, and immediately tried to back out. Sorry, I didn't mean to. It's fine, Isla said quickly. We were just talking. What's up? We're out of plain flour in the front. Do you want me to grab a bag from the back? Yeah, go ahead. Marcus nodded, grabbed a bag from the storage shelf, and left without making eye contact with Damien. When he was gone, Isla sighed. He's terrified of you. I know. Why? Because I could ruin his life with a phone call, Damien thought. Because people like me are the reason people like him learn to keep their heads down. I have that effect on people, he said instead. Not on me. I noticed. Is that a problem? No. He stood, pulled on his jacket. I should go. You have work. So do you, probably. Isla walked him to the door. Same time tomorrow? He should say no. He should end this before it went any further, before she started asking questions he couldn't answer, before she got hurt by being too close to him. Yes, he said. Isla smiled, and Damien walked out into the early morning cold, knowing he was making a mistake and not caring at all. The visits became routine. Every morning at 6:45, Damien walked into Rise and Grind and found Isla waiting with coffee and something new to try. Pain au chocolat, kouign-amann, cinnamon rolls that were so good he actually told her he might be addicted. They talked about everything and nothing. She told him about her failed attempt at making macarons, about the customer who tried to return a croissant because it was too buttery, about her dream of having a bakery with big windows and mismatched chairs and a name that didn't sound corporate. He told her about Sophia, about growing up poor, about learning young that power was the only thing that kept you safe. He didn't tell her how he'd gotten that power, but he told her enough that she should have been scared. She wasn't. 2 weeks in, he arrived to find her frustrated, flour everywhere, and what looked like a failed batch of something burning in the trash. Bad morning? He asked. The worst. I'm trying to develop a new recipe, and it's fighting me. I've made this thing 4 times, and every time it comes out wrong. She gestured angrily at a tray of what appeared to be collapsed pastries. They're supposed to puff. They're not puffing. I don't understand why they're not puffing. Damien looked at the tray. What are they supposed to be? Gougères, cheese puffs. They're French. They're supposed to be easy, and apparently I'm too stupid to make them. You're not stupid. I am when it comes to these. She grabbed one of the collapsed puffs and bit into it anyway, then made a face. Tastes like failure and regret. Let me try. She handed him one. He bit into it. It was dense, chewy, nothing like what he assumed it should be. It's not good. Wow, thanks, super helpful. I meant the texture. The flavor is fine. So it's a technique problem, not an ingredient problem. Isla stared at him. How do you know that? Logic. That's annoyingly smart. She grabbed her phone, started scrolling through what appeared to be a recipe. Okay, so if it's technique, but maybe I'm not incorporating the eggs right? Or the oven temperature is off? Or both? You're supposed to be supportive. I'm being honest. Supportive would be me lying and saying they're great. Isla laughed despite herself. You're terrible at this. At what? Comforting people. Has anyone ever told you that? Frequently. She was still smiling when Priya came in through the back door, carrying 2 coffee cups from the shop next door. She stopped when she saw Damien, her expression carefully neutral. Morning, she said. Morning, Isla replied. Damien's helping me figure out why my gougères are sad. Is that what we're calling it? Priya set down the coffees. Can I talk to you for a second? In the front? Sure. Isla glanced at Damien. Be right back. She followed Priya out, and Damien heard their voices through the wall. He couldn't make out the words, but Priya's tone was urgent, worried. A minute later, Isla came back alone. Her expression was different, guarded. Everything okay? Damien asked. Yeah, fine. Priya's just... She worries. Isla started cleaning up the failed pastries, not looking at him. She thinks I shouldn't trust you. She's right. Isla's hand stilled. What? She's right. You shouldn't trust me. Why not? Because I'm dangerous, Damien thought. Because everyone around me either uses me or fears me, and you're the only person in years who's done neither, and that makes you vulnerable. Because you don't know me, he said. So tell me. Actually, tell me. Isla turned to face him. What do you do, Damien? And don't say businessman. I want the real answer. This was it, the moment where he had to choose between the truth and whatever this thing was between them. I run an organization, he said carefully. What kind of organization? The kind that operates outside normal business channels. Isla's eyes narrowed. Are you in the Mafia? Damien said nothing. Oh my God, you're in the Mafia. It's more complicated than that. How is it more complicated than that? You're either in the Mafia or you're not. The word Mafia makes it sound romantic. It's not. It's business. Ugly business, but business. Isla backed up a step. What kind of ugly business? The kind you don't want to know about. Try me. Damien looked at her, at this woman who'd let him into her kitchen every morning for 2 weeks, who'd shared her coffee and her dreams and her grandmother's croissant recipe. And he made a decision. Protection, loan management, import and export of goods that don't go through traditional channels. Dispute resolution when the legal system won't handle it. He kept his voice flat, factual. I don't hurt people who don't have it coming. I don't deal in anything that exploits people who can't fight back. But I'm not a good person, Isla. I'm the person good people call when they need someone to handle the things they can't. The kitchen was silent. Isla stared at him for a long moment, and Damien waited for her to tell him to leave, to never come back, to stay away from her and her bakery and her life. Instead, she said, Does Sophia know? He blinked. What? Your sister. Does she know what you do? Yes. And she still loves you? Yes. Then it can't be that simple, the good person, bad person thing. Can't be that simple if someone like Sophia still loves you. Damien's throat felt tight. You don't know Sophia. Mom, no, but I know you. A little bit. And I know that if you were actually a bad person, you wouldn't come here every morning to eat pastries and listen to me complain about puff pastry. You'd have better things to do. Maybe I'm just obsessed with your croissants. Maybe. But I don't think so. Isla moved closer, close enough that he could smell the vanilla and butter scent that always clung to her. I think you come here because you're lonely. And I think you're lonely because you've convinced yourself you don't deserve not to be. And I think that's sad. No one had ever said anything like that to him. No one had ever looked at his life and seen loneliness instead of power. You should be afraid of me, Damien said quietly. Probably, but I'm not. Isla grabbed the container of failed gougere. I'm going to try these again. You can stay if you want, or you can leave. But if you stay, you have to actually help instead of just watching me fail. Damien stayed. They spent the next hour working through the recipe, Damien reading instructions while Isla measured and mixed and muttered to herself. When she pulled the new batch from the oven, they were perfect, golden, puffed, exactly what they were supposed to be. Isla bit into one and actually squealed, Oh my God, we did it! They're perfect! You did it, I just read the recipe. You helped, don't downplay it. She handed him one. Try it. He did. It was light, cheesy, delicious. Well? Isla asked. Perfect. She beamed at him, and Damien felt something in his chest crack wider. He was in so much trouble. Over the next week, something shifted. Isla started texting him pictures of things she was baking with captions like, Rate this sourdough loaf, and Tell me these cinnamon rolls aren't perfect, I dare you. He responded with brutal honesty that she claimed to appreciate but probably didn't. Then one morning, he arrived at the bakery to find her waiting outside, not in her usual flower-covered shirt, but in jeans and a sweater. Change of plans, she said. We're going to the farmer's market. What? Farmer's market? It's where people buy vegetables and overpriced bread. I need to scout the competition, and you're coming with me. I don't go to farmers markets. You do now. Come on. She grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the street, and Damien led her because apparently he'd lost all sense of self-preservation where this woman was concerned. The market was crowded, loud, full of people, and smells and chaos that Damien normally avoided. But Isla moved through it like she belonged there, stopping at different stalls to taste samples and ask questions, and argue with a cheese vendor about the difference between aged and sharp cheddar. "You're enjoying this," Damien said as they walked past a stand selling flowers. "Of course I'm enjoying this. Food, sunshine, people who care about what they make. What's not to enjoy? The crowds, the noise, the inefficiency of the entire setup." Isla laughed. "You're such a snob." "I'm practical. You're a snob with a fancy car and a driver and probably a penthouse apartment that costs more than my yearly salary." She wasn't wrong. Damien said nothing. Isla stopped at a bread stall, picked up a sourdough loaf, examined it critically. "This is good," she said to the baker, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes. "What's your hydration percentage?" 75%, the woman said. "And how long do you proof?" "Overnight, cold ferment." "Smart." Isla bought the loaf, then turned to Damien. "See? That's what I want. A stall like this. Maybe not at a market, but somewhere people can come and buy bread that actually means something. Bread that someone cared about making." "You'll have that someday," Damien said. "How do you know?" "Because you're too stubborn not to." Isla smiled at him, and in that moment, surrounded by strangers and noise and the smell of fresh bread, Damien realized he was falling for her. It wasn't a gentle realization. It hit him hard and sudden, like a fist to the chest, and he understood with absolute clarity that this was going to end badly, because people like him didn't get to keep people like her. But as Isla linked her arm through his and pulled him toward another stall, still talking about bread, still smiling, Damien decided he didn't care about the ending. For now, he had this. And for now, that was enough. It wasn't until the third week that Damien realized they lived in the same building. He'd been leaving the bakery later than usual, nearly 9 in the morning, because Isla had insisted he try her new fig and honey tart, and then gotten into a passionate explanation of why Turkish figs were superior to California figs. When he finally made it back to his building, he saw her in the lobby, still in her bakery shirt, struggling with 2 massive bags of flour. She looked up, saw him, and her entire face transformed. "Oh, thank God. You live here?" "Apparently. Can you help me? These are 50-pound bags and the elevator is broken and I'm on the 4th floor and I'm pretty sure I'm going to die." Damien took both bags from her without effort. "Why are you carrying flour to your apartment?" "Because my apartment is also my test kitchen and I ran out of the good stuff and the supplier delivers to residential addresses if you're pathetic enough to ask nicely." She was already heading toward the stairs. "4th floor. I'll try not to let you see how out of shape I am on the way up." She wasn't out of shape. She was breathing hard by the 2nd floor, but so was Damien, because 50 pounds of flour in each arm was harder than it looked. "You okay?" Isla asked, glancing back at him. "Fine. You look like you're going to pass out." "I'm fine." Very convincing. They made it to the 4th floor, and Isla led him down a hallway that was significantly less pristine than the upper floors where Damien's penthouse sat. The carpet was worn, the paint was scuffed, and there was a smell of cooking oil that had probably been embedded in the walls for decades. She stopped at 4C, unlocked 3 separate locks, and pushed the door open. "Welcome to chaos," she said. She wasn't exaggerating. The apartment was small, cramped, and every available surface was covered with baking equipment. The kitchen table had been converted into a workspace with a standing mixer, multiple bowls, and what appeared to be a sourdough starter in a jar labeled Herbert. The counters were buried under bags of flour, sugar, and various ingredients. There were cookbooks stacked on the floor, index cards with recipes taped to the walls, and a whiteboard covered in notes and calculations. "You can just put those anywhere there's space," Isla said, which, admittedly, is nowhere, so maybe just the floor by the door? Damien set down the flour bags. "You live like this?" "Like what?" "Like a bakery exploded." "Technically, I live in a bakery that occasionally pretends to be an apartment." She kicked off her shoes, moved a stack of baking sheets off the couch, and gestured for him to sit. "Want coffee? I have good coffee here. Better than the bakery stuff." "Sure." She disappeared into the kitchen area, and Damien heard the sounds of a kettle being filled, cabinets opening and closing. He looked around the apartment, taking in the details. There were photos on the wall, mostly of Isla with an older woman who had the same smile. Her grandmother, probably. There was a shelf full of cookbooks, some so worn the spines were cracked. And there, on the windowsill, was a small pot with a dead plant in it. "I know what you're thinking," Isla called from the kitchen. "She can keep a sourdough starter alive for 2 years, but can't keep a plant alive for 2 weeks." "I wasn't thinking that." "Yes, you were. And you're right. Plants hate me. Herbert loves me. It's a complicated relationship." She came back with 2 mugs of coffee and handed him one. She'd changed out of her bakery shirt into an oversized sweater that had flour stains on the sleeves. "So," she said, sitting next to him on the couch, "you live upstairs?" "Penthouse." "Of course you do." She sipped her coffee. "What's it like?" "Empty." Isla looked at him over the rim of her mug. "That's sad." "It's quiet." "Same thing sometimes." They sat in silence for a moment, and Damien realized this was the first time he'd been in someone's home in years. He had business meetings in restaurants, hotel rooms, office spaces. He had arrangements with women who came to his place or met him at theirs, but those weren't homes. Those were just locations. This was different. This was Isla's space, messy and chaotic and filled with things she cared about. She'd let him in without hesitation, without fear, without the calculation most people approached him with. "Can I ask you something?" Isla said. "You're going to anyway." She smiled. "True. Why do you really come to the bakery every morning?" "I told you, the croissants." "Damien." He set down his coffee. "Because when I'm there, I'm not Damien Moretti. I'm just Damien, and I haven't been just Damien in a very long time." Isla was quiet. Then she reached over and put her hand on his arm, just a light touch, but it burned through the fabric of his shirt. "You're always just Damien to me." "You don't know what that means." "Then tell me." Before Damien could answer, his phone rang. He pulled it out, saw Vincent's name, and his expression went cold. "I have to take this." "Okay." He stood, walked to the window, answered. "What?" "We have a problem," Vincent said, "but the shipment from the North District, it's gone." "Gone how?" "Intercepted. Someone knew the route." Damien's jaw tightened. "Who?" "Working on it. But Damien, this is the 3rd one this month. We have a leak." "Find it. Fix it." "I will. But you need to be careful. Whoever this is, they're getting close." Damien hung up, and when he turned around, Isla was watching him with an expression he couldn't read. "You have to go," she said. "Yes." "Is everything okay?" "No," Damien thought. "Nothing is okay. My world is bleeding into yours, and that's dangerous for both of us." "It's fine," he said. Isla didn't look convinced, but she didn't push. "Okay, thanks for carrying the flour." "Anytime." He left, and as he rode the elevator up to his penthouse, he tried to ignore the feeling that he was making a terrible mistake by letting her get this close. The next morning, he didn't go to the bakery. It was a test, a way to prove to himself that he could stop this before it went too far, before someone used her to get to him, before his world destroyed the one thing that felt clean. He made it until noon before he caved. When he walked into Rise and Grind, Isla was teaching what appeared to be a baking class. There were 5 people clustered around the counter, all wearing aprons, all covered in varying amounts of flour. Isla was demonstrating how to fold croissant dough, her hands moving with practiced precision. "See how the butter is staying intact?" she was saying. "That's what you want. If it starts melting, your kitchen is too warm. Stick it back in the fridge. Wait 10 minutes. Try again." Patience is everything with lamination. One of the students, a middle-aged man with glasses, asked a question Damien couldn't hear. Isla laughed. "Yeah, I know, it seems impossible at first. I literally cried the first time I tried to make croissants. Like, actual tears. My grandmother had to talk me down. But once you get the hang of it, it's just repetition, muscle memory. Your hands learn what right feels like." She looked up and saw Damien. Her expression brightened immediately. "Hey, you came!" "You have a class." "I know. It's a new thing we're trying. Community baking workshops, Priya's idea. She thinks it'll build customer loyalty and also bring in extra income, which, honestly, we need." Isla turned back to her students. Everyone, this is Damien. He's a croissant snob, so if you want brutal honesty about your pastries, he's your guy. The students looked at Damien with varying levels of curiosity and intimidation. I'm not staying, Damien said. Yes, you are. Come here. It wasn't a request. Isla grabbed his wrist and pulled him to the counter, handed him an apron. You're going to help me teach. I don't know how to teach. You know how to eat croissants. That's basically the same thing. Quality control. She turned to the class. Okay, everyone's going to finish their folds, and then Damien is going to taste test and give feedback. Fair warning, he's mean. I'm not mean. You told me my gougères tasted like failure and regret. They did. See? Mean. But she was smiling. For the next hour, Damien found himself standing in a bakery kitchen, tasting imperfect croissants made by strangers, and offering feedback that Isla kept having to soften because apparently this is structurally unsound, wasn't encouraging. But the strangest part was that he didn't hate it. The students were nervous at first, but Isla had a way of making people feel safe. She joked with them, encouraged them, celebrated their small victories like they were major achievements. And slowly, Damien watched them relax, watched them start enjoying the process instead of being terrified of failing. By the end of the class, everyone had produced something edible, and Isla was beaming like a proud parent. You did it, she said to a young woman who'd been close to giving up halfway through. These are beautiful, seriously. You should be proud. The woman blushed. They're not as good as yours. They're not supposed to be. I've been doing this for years. You've been doing it for 2 hours. The fact that they're even recognizable as croissants is impressive. After the students left, Isla collapsed onto a stool, looking exhausted but happy. That was amazing. Did you see how excited they were? I saw. I think we should do more of these, maybe twice a week. Different pastries, build a whole curriculum. She was already planning, her eyes bright with ideas. We could do bread basics, advanced lamination, pie crusts, maybe even a class on… She stopped. Why are you looking at me like that? Like what? Like I just said something profound. You're good at this. At teaching? At making people feel like they matter. Isla's expression softened. Everyone matters, Damien. Not in my world. Then your world is wrong. It was such a simple statement, delivered with such absolute conviction that Damien didn't know how to respond. His phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. Charity gala tomorrow night. You're coming. Non-negotiable. Bring a date. He stared at the message. Everything okay? Isla asked. My sister wants me to go to a charity event. That sounds nice. It's not. It's politics and networking and people pretending to care about causes they don't actually support. Wow, cynical much? Realistic. Isla tilted her head. What's the charity? Children's hospital, I think. And you don't think people actually care about sick kids? I think people care about being seen caring about sick kids. What about your sister? Does she care? Damien paused. Yes. Then go for her. Not for the politics or the networking, just for her. He looked at Isla, at this woman who somehow always knew exactly what to say to cut through his bullshit. Come with me. She blinked. What? To the gala. Come with me. Damien, I don't have anything to wear to a gala. I'll handle it. You'll handle it? What does that even mean? It means I'll send someone to take you shopping. Whatever you need, it's covered. Isla stood up, crossed her arms. I can't let you buy me clothes. Why not? Because that's weird. We're friends, and friends don't just buy each other gala dresses. Are we friends? The question hung in the air between them. Isla's expression changed, became uncertain. I thought we were. I don't have friends, Isla. I have associates. I have people who work for me. I have my sister, but I don't have friends. Then what am I? Damien moved closer to her, close enough to see the flowers still dusted on her cheek, close enough to smell vanilla and butter and warmth. I don't know. But you're not just a friend. Isla's breath caught. Damien, come to the gala, please. She searched his face for a long moment. Okay, but I'm buying my own dress. Isla, non-negotiable. If I'm going to this thing, I'm going on my own terms. He could have argued, he could have insisted, but the stubborn set of her jaw told him it would be pointless. Fine. Good, she smiled. Now get out. I have to clean up this disaster before tomorrow's prep. Damien left, and as he walked back to his building, he wondered what the hell he was doing bringing her into his world like this. The gala was being held at the Grandview Hotel, a massive space with crystal chandeliers and marble floors and the kind of ostentatious wealth that made Damien tired. He'd been to 100 events like this, had smiled and shaken hands and made donations that were really just investments in maintaining appearances. But tonight felt different. He was standing near the bar, nursing a drink he hadn't actually tasted, when Sophia found him. "You're here early," she said, kissing his cheek. "And alone. Where's your date?" "She's coming." Sophia's eyebrows rose. "She? You brought someone?" "You told me to. I tell you to do a lot of things. You never listen." She studied him with the kind of knowing look only a younger sister could pull off. "Who is she?" "Someone I know." "Damien. Her name is Isla. She's a baker. He stopped, not sure how to finish that sentence. "She's what?" "Different." Sophia's expression transformed into something dangerously close to glee. "Oh my God, you like her. Actually like her." "Sophia, this is unprecedented. I need to meet her immediately." "You will. She's—" Damien's voice died as he saw Isla walk into the ballroom. She was wearing a simple black dress that somehow made every other woman in the room look overdressed. Her hair was down, falling in waves over her shoulders, and she moved through the crowd with the same slightly awkward grace she had in the bakery. She saw him and smiled, and Damien forgot how to breathe. "That's her?" Sophia whispered. "Yes." "Damien, she's beautiful." "I know." Isla made her way over to them, and up close Damien could see she was nervous. Her hands were clasped in front of her, and she kept looking around like she wasn't sure she belonged here. "Hi," she said. "Sorry I'm late. I got lost trying to find the ballroom. This place is like a maze." "You're not late," Damien said. "You're perfect." Isla blushed, and Sophia made a sound that was almost a squeal. "You must be Isla," Sophia said, extending her hand. "I'm Sophia, Damien's sister and the person responsible for the terrible blind date that started all of this." Isla shook her hand, laughing. "That was your fault?" "I should thank you. That blind date was the weirdest thing that ever happened to me, and it turned out pretty great." "I like her," Sophia said to Damien. "I'm keeping her." "You can't keep her. She's not a pet. Watch me." Sophia linked her arm through Isla's. "Come on, I'll introduce you to some people. Damien can brood by the bar. It's what he does best." And just like that, his sister stole his date. Damien watched them disappear into the crowd, and he felt something close to panic. This was a mistake. He should have never brought Isla here, into this world of money and power, and people who would use her the second they figured out she meant something to him. He was about to go after them when Vincent appeared at his elbow. "We need to talk," Vincent said quietly. "Not now." "Yes, now. We found the leak." Damien's attention snapped to him. "Who?" "Carlo. He's been feeding information to the Rossi family. They're planning something big." "How big?" "Big enough that you should probably leave. Now." Damien looked across the ballroom, found Isla and Sophia standing near the silent auction tables, laughing about something. Isla looked happy, relaxed, like she belonged here even though Damien knew she felt out of place. "I'm not leaving," Damien said. "Damien, handle it, quietly. I'll deal with Carlo tomorrow." Vincent hesitated, then nodded and disappeared. Damien made his way across the ballroom, and when he reached Isla and Sophia, they were talking to a woman he recognized, Veronica Ashford, old money, sharp tongue, and the kind of connections that could destroy reputations with a single well-placed comment. "Damien," Veronica said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "I was just getting to know your friend." Isla said, extending her hand. "Nice to meet you." Veronica looked at Isla's hand for a fraction too long before shaking it. "Charming. And what do you do, Isla?" "I'm a baker." "How quaint." The word hung in the air, and Damien saw Isla's expression flicker. "She's opening her own bakery," Sophia said quickly. "She makes the best croissants I've ever had." "I'm sure they're lovely." Veronica's tone suggested she thought they were anything but. She turned to Damien.
I didn't realize you were dating, Damien, and someone so unexpected.
Unexpected how? Damien's voice went cold.
Oh, she's very different from your usual type. Simpler, less polished.
Veronica's smile was poisonous. But I suppose that's refreshing. Everyone gets tired of caviar eventually. Sometimes you just want bread. Isla's face flushed, but she didn't back down. Yeah, well, bread is honest. It doesn't pretend to be something it's not. Veronica's eyes narrowed. How philosophical. Isla, Sophia said, touching her arm. Come on, I want to show you the auction items. But Isla didn't move. She was staring at Veronica with an expression that was half hurt, half defiant. Did I do something to offend you? Because I just met you, and you're treating me like I'm dirt on your shoe. Don't be dramatic, dear. I'm simply making conversation. No, you're being cruel. There's a difference. Veronica laughed, but it was sharp. You're sensitive. How sweet. Isla looked at Damien, and in her eyes he saw the question. Are you going to say something? He should have. He should have shut Veronica down immediately, should have defended Isla, should have made it clear that anyone who disrespected her answered to him. But the words stuck in his throat, because saying something meant admitting that Isla mattered, meant exposing a weakness that people like Veronica would exploit. So he said nothing. And Isla saw it. Her expression changed, went carefully blank. Excuse me, she said quietly. I need some air. She walked away, and Damien started to follow, but Sophia grabbed his arm. What the hell was that? She hissed. Not now, Sophia. Yes, now. You just stood there while Veronica humiliated her. You didn't say a word. You what? You were calculating? You were playing politics? Damien, that woman just walked away from 100 people who saw you do nothing while someone tore her apart. Damien pulled away from his sister and went after Isla. He found her on the terrace, standing at the railing, looking out over the city. Her shoulders were rigid, her hands gripping the stone like she was holding herself together. Isla. She didn't turn around. Don't. I'm sorry. For what? For not defending me? For standing there like I was some embarrassment you had to tolerate? Her voice cracked. Or for bringing me here in the first place? All of it. Now she turned and there were tears in her eyes. Do you know what the worst part is? It's not that she was cruel. People are cruel all the time. It's that you let her. You stood there and you said nothing, and I realized something. What? That I don't actually belong in your world, and you know it. That's not true, isn't it? Look at this place, Damien. Look at these people. They're your people. They speak your language. They understand the rules of whatever game you're all playing, and I'm the girl who makes bread. I'm the one who doesn't fit. Damien moved closer. You're more than that. Am I? Because right now I feel like I'm exactly what that woman said I was. Simple, unpolished, not good enough to stand next to you. Isla, I need to go. Don't. I can't do this. I thought I could, but I can't. She wiped her eyes, smearing mascara. I'm sorry. I should have never come. She walked past him, and this time Damien didn't follow. He stood on the terrace alone, and for the first time in years, he felt the crushing weight of exactly what he'd built. A world where power mattered more than people, where silence was safer than honesty, where someone like Isla could never truly belong because she was too real for the carefully constructed lies everyone else lived in. When he finally went back inside, Isla was gone. Sophia found him an hour later. You're an idiot. I know. Go after her. And say what? The truth. That you care about her. That you're sorry. That you'll do better. Sophia's expression softened. Damien, I've never seen you like this with anyone. Don't throw it away because you're scared. I'm not scared. Yes, you are. You're terrified. And that's okay. But being scared doesn't mean you get to hurt people. Damien left the gala without saying goodbye. He went to Isla's apartment, knocked on her door, waited. She didn't answer. He knocked again. Isla, I know you're in there. Go away, Damien. Not until we talk. There's nothing to talk about. There's everything to talk about. The door opened. Isla stood there in sweatpants and her flour-stained sweater, her eyes red from crying. What do you want? To apologize. You already did.
Not well enough, apparently. Damien, I can't keep doing this. Being with you means being in your world, and I don't fit in your world. Tonight proved that.
My world is wrong, Damien said, repeating her words back to her. You were right. It's wrong, and empty, and full of people who don't matter. But you matter. You're the only thing that's mattered in years. Isla's eyes filled with tears again. Then why didn't you say something? Because I was afraid. Because in my world, showing weakness gets you killed. And caring about someone, letting people see that you care, that's the biggest weakness there is. I'm not asking you to be weak. I'm asking you to be honest. I am being honest. Right now, I'm telling you that I care about you more than I've cared about anyone except Sophia. I'm telling you that my world is brutal and ugly and dangerous, but when I'm with you, it doesn't matter. When I'm with you, I'm just Damien. And I haven't been just Damien since I was a kid. Isla was crying fully now. Why did you bring me tonight if you knew it would be like that? Because I wanted you there. Because Sophia wanted to meet you. Because for one night, I wanted to pretend that my two worlds could exist together. He stepped closer. But they can't. I see that now. So I'm giving you a choice. What choice? You can walk away. Right now. And I won't come to the bakery anymore. I won't show up at your door. I'll stay in my world, and you'll stay in yours. And we'll both be safer for it. Or you trust me. You trust that I'm going to do better. That I'm going to figure out how to protect you and be honest with you at the same time. That I'm going to be the person you deserve instead of the person everyone expects me to be. Isla stared at him for a long moment. I don't know if I can trust that. I know. But I want to. Damien's chest felt like it was breaking open. What does that mean? It means I'm not walking away. Not yet. But Damien, if you ever make me feel like that again, if you ever stand there and let someone treat me like I'm nothing, I'm done. I won't give you another chance. Understood. I'm serious. I know you are. Isla wiped her eyes. Okay, then we're okay. For now. It wasn't a declaration. It wasn't a promise. But it was enough. Damien pulled her into his arms, and she let him, her face pressed against his chest, her hands gripping his shirt like she was afraid he'd disappear. I'm sorry, he said again. I know. They stood there in her doorway, holding each other, and Damien understood with absolute clarity that he was in love with her. He was in love with a baker who lived on the 4th floor, who kept a sourdough starter named Herbert, who could see right through him and chose to stay anyway. And that terrified him more than anything else in his entire brutal, dangerous life. The morning after the gala, Damien woke up on Isla's couch with a crick in his neck and the smell of butter and cinnamon filling the small apartment. He sat up, disoriented, and saw her in the kitchen area, still in her sweatpants, hair pulled into a messy knot, working dough on the counter. She glanced over her shoulder. You snore. I don't snore. You absolutely snore, like a broken engine. It's terrible. But she was smiling slightly, and that felt like forgiveness, even though Damien knew he didn't deserve it yet. He stood, rolled his shoulders, tried to work out the stiffness from sleeping on a couch that was 6 inches too short. What are you making? Cinnamon rolls, stress baking. I do it when I can't sleep. She shaped another roll, placed it in a pan with the others. I've been up since 3. Isla, I'm fine. Really. I just needed to work through some things, and kneading dough helps. She covered the pan with a towel. These need to proof for an hour, and then they'll be ready. You want coffee? Yes. She made coffee while he stood there feeling useless, which was not a sensation Damien was accustomed to. In his world, he always knew what to do, how to fix things, how to control situations. But here, in this flour-dusted apartment with a woman who was stress baking at dawn, he had no idea what the right move was. Isla handed him a mug. Stop overthinking. I'm not. You are. I can see it. You're trying to figure out how to fix this, and the answer is you can't, not immediately. You just have to do better going forward. How do you do that? Do what? Read me so easily. Isla leaned against the counter. Because you're not as complicated as you think you are. You're just a person who's had to build a lot of walls to survive. But walls aren't personality traits. Underneath all that, you're pretty straightforward. I don't think anyone's ever called me straightforward.
That's because most people only see the walls. She sipped her coffee. I see you. The words hit him harder than they should have. Damien set down his mug, moved closer to her. Isla. His phone rang. He closed his eyes, briefly considered throwing it out the window. Answer it, Isla said. It's okay. It was Vincent, again. Damien stepped into the hallway to take the call. This better be important. Carlo's missing, Vincent said without preamble. He didn't show up for the meeting this morning. His apartment's been cleared out. Damien's jaw tightened. Find him. We're trying. But Damien, if he's working with the Rossies, he knows everything. Routes, contacts, operations. This could get ugly fast. Then make sure it doesn't. Where are you? You sound different. I'm handling something. I'll be in the office by noon. He hung up and found Isla standing in the doorway, watching him. You have to go, she said. Not yet. Damien, you run an empire. You can't just ignore it because you slept on my couch. Watch me. She smiled, but it was sad. This is what I mean. Your world doesn't stop just because you want it to, and I can't ask you to choose between that and this. You're not asking. I'm choosing. For how long? A day, a week? Eventually something's going to happen that you can't ignore, and you'll have to go, and I'll be here wondering when you're coming back. If you're coming back. Damien pulled her close, his hands on her waist. I'll always come back. You can't promise that. I just did. Isla looked up at him, her eyes searching his face. What are we doing, Damien? I don't know, but I don't want to stop. Me neither. She rested her forehead against his chest. But I'm scared. Of what? Of getting used to this. Of needing you. Of building my life around someone who could disappear at any moment because of something I don't understand and can't control. Damien tilted her chin up, made her look at him. I'm scared too. Of what? Of losing you. Of someone using you to get to me. Of my world destroying the best thing that's happened to me in years. They stood there in her small apartment, holding each other, both terrified and both unwilling to let go. The timer on the oven went off. Isla pulled away, wiped her eyes. Cinnamon rolls are ready. She pulled them from the oven, and they were perfect. Golden brown, the cinnamon sugar caramelized on top, the smell so incredible that Damien's stomach actually growled. Isla laughed through her tears. When's the last time you ate? Yesterday, maybe. Damien. I was busy. She cut 2 massive pieces, slid one across to him. Eat. You're useless when you're hungry. They ate in silence, and Damien thought about how strange it was that some of the best moments of his life were happening in this cramped kitchen, eating baked goods at dawn with a woman who made him want to be better. His phone buzzed again. A text from Sophia. How did it go with Isla? He typed back. Still figuring it out. Sophia. Don't screw this up. Damien. Trying not to. Sophia. Try harder. He pocketed the phone, looked at Isla. My sister likes you. I like her too. She's genuine. Not like those other people last night. Most people in my world aren't genuine. What about you? I'm trying to be. With you. Isla reached across the counter, took his hand. Then keep trying. That's all I'm asking. Damien stayed until 8, then forced himself to leave. He had work, problems that wouldn't solve themselves, an empire that demanded his attention whether he wanted to give it or not. But for the first time, he resented it. The next week was chaos. Carlo had indeed disappeared, and with him went 3 major distribution routes and the names of 5 key contacts. The Rossies were making moves, testing boundaries, seeing how far they could push before Damien pushed back. Damien pushed back hard. There were meetings in dark rooms, quiet conversations that ended with people agreeing to things they didn't want to agree to, and one very pointed reminder to a rival family that crossing Damien Moretti was a mistake people didn't get to make twice. Through it all, he texted Isla. Short messages, nothing important, just proof he was still alive, still thinking about her. How's Herbert? Alive and thriving, unlike my basil plant. R.I.P. You killed another plant. It was sick when I got it. I'm blameless. You're never blameless. Rude, but accurate. On Thursday, he showed up at the bakery at closing time with takeout from the Italian place 3 blocks over. Isla looked up from wiping down the counters, saw him, and her entire face brightened. You're alive.
Barely. You look terrible. Thank you. I mean it. When's the last time you slept? Damien set down the food. Tuesday. Maybe. Damien, I've been busy. Isla walked over, stood in front of him, and put her hands on either side of his face. You're going to kill yourself working like this. Probably. That's not funny. I'm not joking. She pulled him down and kissed him. It was the first time, and it was nothing like Damien expected. There was no calculation, no strategy, no performance. It was just Isla, tasting like sugar and coffee, her hands in his hair, her body pressed against his. When they broke apart, they were both breathing hard. What was that for? Damien asked. Because you looked like you needed it, did you? Yes? Good. She grabbed the takeout bags. Come on, we're eating upstairs, your place this time. I want to see this mysterious penthouse. It's not mysterious, it's just empty. Then let's fill it with pasta. They took the elevator up, and when Damien unlocked the door to his penthouse, Isla walked in and stopped. Holy shit. What? This place is huge and sterile. It looks like a hotel room. She wasn't wrong. Everything was pristine, expensive, impersonal. There was no clutter, no personality, nothing that suggested a human being actually lived here. I told you it was empty, Damien said. Isla walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows, looked out over the city. The view is incredible. It's the only good part. She turned to face him. You really hate it here, don't you? I don't hate it. I just don't feel anything about it. It's where I sleep, that's all. That's so sad, Damien. They ate at the massive dining table that Damien had never actually used. Isla talked about her day, about the customer who'd ordered 200 croissants for a corporate event, about Marcus the baker's new boyfriend, about Priya's idea to start a subscription service for weekly bread deliveries. Damien listened, asked questions, let her voice fill the silent apartment. After dinner, they moved to the couch, and Isla curled up against him, her head on his chest, her hand over his heart. Can I ask you something? She said. Always. What happens when this gets serious? When people in your world figure out that I matter to you? Damien had been waiting for this question, dreading it. I protect you. How? However I need to. Isla sat up, looked at him. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. My world is dangerous, Isla. People use weakness against you. And caring about someone is the biggest weakness there is. So what am I supposed to do? Just trust that you'll handle it? Yes. That's asking a lot. I know. Isla was quiet for a long moment. Okay. Okay? I trust you. I don't know if that's smart or stupid, but I trust you. Damien pulled her back against him, held her tight. I won't let anything happen to you. You can't promise that. I just did. She fell asleep there on his couch, and Damien stayed awake watching her, memorizing the way she looked peaceful, unguarded, safe. He knew it couldn't last. He knew eventually something would go wrong, someone would threaten her. His world would bleed into hers in ways he couldn't control. But for now, she was here. And that was enough. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. Damien was in a meeting with Vincent when his phone rang. Unknown number. He normally wouldn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Moretti. The voice was smooth, familiar. Antonio Rossi. We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about. I disagree. You see, I've become aware of your friendship with a certain baker, Isla Monroe. Lovely girl, makes excellent croissants. Every muscle in Damien's body went rigid. If you've touched her, relax. I haven't touched her. Yet. But I could. Easily. She walks to work every morning at 4:30, takes the same route. Never looks behind her. It would be so simple to make her disappear. Damien's vision went red. What do you want? The North District routes. The ones Carlo was supposed to give us before he had his unfortunate accident. You killed Carlo. He was weak. But that's not the point. The point is you have something I want, and I have access to something you care about. Let's make a trade. I don't make deals with threats. Then Miss Monroe is going to have a very bad week. Your choice. The line went dead. Damien stood, grabbed his jacket. Sir? Vincent looked concerned. What's happening? Get security to the bakery, now. and find Antonio Rossi. I don't care how. Damien, do it. He was out the door before Vincent could respond. Marcus had the car ready, and they made it to the bakery in 8 minutes flat. Damien burst through the door to find Isla frosting cupcakes, completely oblivious. She looked up, startled. Damien, what's wrong? Pack a bag. You're coming with me. What? No, I'm working. Isla, this isn't a request. She set down the frosting bag, her expression shifting from confused to worried. What happened? Someone threatened you, someone from my world, and I need to get you somewhere safe until I handle it. Threaten me how? It doesn't matter. What matters is, it absolutely matters. Tell me what's going on. Damien looked at her, at this woman who refused to be protected if it meant being kept in the dark, and he told her everything about Carlo, about the Rossis, about Antonio's call. By the time he finished, Isla was pale but steady. Okay, she said. Okay? You need to keep me safe. I get it. But Damien, you can't lock me away and expect me to just sit there while you go to war with these people. That's exactly what I expect you to do. Well, that's not happening. She started untying her apron. I'll go with you. I'll stay somewhere secure. But you have to promise me something. What? You end this. Not just for now. Forever. I can't live like this, looking over my shoulder, wondering when someone's going to use me to get to you. If we're going to do this, then you need to fix this. I will. How? I don't know yet, but I will. Isla stepped closer, put her hand on his chest. Don't do anything stupid. Don't get yourself killed trying to protect me. I won't. Promise me. I promise. She kissed him, hard and desperate, and then she grabbed her bag. Damien took her to a safe house outside the city, a property he owned that nobody except Vincent knew about. It was small, isolated, and secure. Isla looked around the space at the basic furniture and the stocked kitchen and the windows with reinforced glass. How long do I have to stay here? Until it's safe. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. She turned to face him. Go. Do what you need to do. But Damien, if you don't come back, I'll come back. You keep saying that. Because it's true. He left before she could argue. Left before he could second-guess himself. Left before the fear of losing her could paralyze him. The next 48 hours were brutal. Damien called in every favor, used every connection, and made it very clear to Antonio Rossi that threatening Isla Monroe was the last mistake he would ever make. There was a meeting in a warehouse on the east side. Damien walked in with Vincent and 4 others, faced Antonio across a space that smelled like oil and rust and violence. You shouldn't have touched her, Damien said. Antonio smiled. I didn't touch her. I simply made you aware of how easy it would be. And now I'm making you aware of something. You go near her again, you even think about her, and I will dismantle everything you've built. Your family, your operations, your life. All of it. Gone. You're threatening me over a woman? No, I'm promising you. Antonio's smile faded. You've changed, Moretti. You used to understand that business came first. I still do. This is business. You made it business when you threatened her. She's a liability. She makes you weak. She makes me focused. And right now I'm very focused on making sure you understand that she's untouchable. The tension in the warehouse was suffocating. Damien saw Antonio calculating, weighing his options, trying to figure out if this was a bluff. It wasn't. Finally, Antonio nodded. Fine. The girl is off limits, but the roots, you get nothing. You lost that privilege when you made this personal. Damien, we're done here. Damien walked out, and Vincent followed. That was risky, Vincent said once they were in the car. I know. He could come after you directly now. Let him try. Sir, with all due respect, you just declared war over a woman. Damien looked at Vincent. No, I just made it clear that some things are more important than territory. And if that makes me weak in their eyes, I don't care. Vincent was quiet for a moment. You love her. Yes. And you're willing to risk everything for her. Yes. Vincent smiled slightly. Good. It's about time. Damien went back to the safe house, found Isla curled up on the couch reading a cookbook. She looked up when he walked in, and relief flooded her expression.
You're okay. I'm fine. Is it over? For now, Antonio won't come after you. I made sure of it. How? By making it clear that you're protected, that anyone who touches you answers to me.
Isla set down the cookbook. And that's supposed to make me feel better? Knowing that you had to threaten people to keep me safe?
It's the reality of my world, Isla. Then maybe I don't belong in your world. The words hit him like a physical blow. What are you saying?
I'm saying that I can't live like this. Running, hiding, being a liability that you have to protect. I have a life, Damien, a bakery, friends, dreams. And I can't put all of that on hold every time someone from your world decides I'm an easy target. So what do you want me to do? I want you to choose. Your world or me. Damien stared at her. That's not fair. None of this is fair. You think I wanted to fall for someone whose life is so dangerous that I have to hide in a safe house? You think I planned this? She was crying now. But I did fall for you, and now I'm stuck between loving you and protecting myself, and I don't know what to do. Damien crossed the room, pulled her into his arms. I choose you. What? I choose you over everything, over the routes, the territory, the power, all of it. I choose you. Damien, you can't just walk away from your life. Watch me. What about your organization? Vincent can run it. He's been ready for years. What about the people who depend on you? They'll adapt. They always do. Isla pulled back, looked at him. You're serious. Completely. But that's not... You can't just give up everything you've built. It's not giving up. It's choosing something better. He cupped her face in his hands. You asked me once what I wanted. I want this. I want you. I want mornings in your kitchen and arguments about croissants and a life that doesn't feel empty. I want to be just Damien, not Damien Moretti, the crime boss. And I can't have that if I stay in that world. What if you regret it? I won't. How do you know? Because I already regret every morning I didn't wake up next to you. I regret every moment I wasted being someone I hate just because it was easier than changing. I regret all of it, Isla, but I don't regret you. I never will. Isla kissed him, and it tasted like salt and promises and the terrifying hope that maybe, just maybe, they could make this work. Okay, she whispered against his lips. Okay? We'll figure it out. Together. Damien held her close and knew that walking away from his empire was going to be the hardest thing he'd ever done, but losing her would be worse. Walking away turned out to be more complicated than Damien expected. He'd imagined it would be clean. He'd tell Vincent he was done, hand over control, and disappear into a normal life with Isla. But his world didn't work that way. There were loose ends, obligations, people who needed reassurance that the transition wouldn't leave them vulnerable. It took 3 weeks to untangle himself. 3 weeks where Isla stayed at the safe house and Damien divided his time between dismantling his empire and trying to build something new. You don't have to do this, Vincent said one afternoon in Damien's office. They were going through the final transfer of assets, and Vincent looked uncomfortable with the whole thing. You could step back, let me handle day-to-day, but keep your hand in it. You don't have to burn it all down. I'm not burning it down. I'm walking away. There's a difference. Not much of one from where I'm sitting. Damien signed the last document, pushed it across the desk. This is what I want. Because of her. Yes. Vincent leaned back in his chair, studied Damien with an expression that was part concern, part resignation. I hope she's worth it. She is. And if it doesn't work out, if normal life isn't what you thought it would be, then I'll deal with it. But I'm not coming back, Vincent. This is done. Vincent nodded slowly. All right. Then I guess this is it. I guess it is. They shook hands and Damien felt the weight of 20 years lift off his shoulders. It wasn't relief exactly. It was more like vertigo, the dizzying sensation of free-falling without knowing where he'd land. He went back to the safe house, found Isla in the kitchen attempting to bake bread with the limited supplies they had. The kitchen was a disaster, flour everywhere, and she looked frustrated. How's it going? Damien asked. Terrible. This oven is garbage, the flour is wrong, and I'm pretty sure the yeast is dead. She gestured at a sad, flat lump of dough. This is supposed to be sourdough. It looks like a mistake. Damien moved behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. It'll rise.
No, it won't. It's dead. I killed it. You didn't kill it. You're just in a bad kitchen. Isla turned in his arms, looked up at him. How did it go? It's done. I'm out. Her eyes widened. Completely? Completely. Vincent has everything. I have nothing except a bank account and some investments that are legitimate enough that nobody's going to ask questions. And you're okay with that? I don't know yet. Ask me in a month.
Isla smiled, but it was worried.
What if you're not? What if you wake up one day and realize you miss it? Then we'll deal with it. But Isla, I meant what I said. I choose you, and I don't make choices I regret. She kissed him, and for the first time in weeks, Damien felt like he could breathe. They went back to the city 2 days later. Isla insisted on going straight to the bakery, claiming Herbert was probably dead from neglect, and the whole place had probably burned down in her absence.
It hadn't. Marcus and Priya had kept everything running, and when Isla walked through the door, they both looked relieved. Thank God, Marcus said. Priya's been impossible without you here. I have not, Priya protested. I've been perfectly reasonable. You made a customer cry because they asked for a gluten-free option. They deserved it.
Isla laughed, and the sound filled the bakery in a way that made Damien realize how much he'd missed hearing it.
She immediately dove into work mode, checking on Herbert, evaluating the inventory, asking 100 questions about what had happened while she was gone. Damien stood by the door and watched her, and it occurred to him that this was what happiness looked like. Not power or control or fear, just Isla in her element, surrounded by flower and warmth and people who cared about her. You're staring, Priya said, appearing at his elbow. I know. It's creepy. Probably. Priya crossed her arms, studied him. She told me what you did, giving up your whole life for her. I didn't give it up. I chose something different. That's a nice way of putting it, but the real question is, what are you going to do now? You can't just follow her around the bakery all day looking love-struck. Why not? Because it's weird. And because you need a purpose. Everyone needs a purpose. Damien hadn't thought about that. His whole adult life had been defined by his work, by the empire he'd built, by the power he'd maintained. Without it, who was he? He was still figuring that out a week later when Sophia called. I heard you quit, she said without preamble. I didn't quit, I retired. Same thing. Are you having a breakdown? Should I be worried? I'm fine, Sophia. You gave up everything for a woman you've known for 2 months. That's not fine, that's insane. It's not insane, it's… Damien paused. It's the first smart thing I've done in years. Sophia was quiet for a moment. You really love her? Yes. And you're happy? I'm terrified. But yes, I think I'm happy. Good. Then I'm happy for you. But Damien, what are you going to do with yourself? You can't just not work. You'll go crazy. She wasn't wrong. Damien had been trying to adjust to a life without constant meetings and problems and decisions, and it was harder than he expected. He was restless, unfocused, used to being needed and now finding himself with nothing to do. Isla noticed. You're bored, she said one morning while they were having coffee in her apartment. I'm not bored. You've reorganized my spice cabinet twice, alphabetized my cookbooks, and deep-cleaned my oven. You're bored. Damien couldn't argue with that. Isla set down her coffee. What did you like about your old life? Besides the power and the control and all that. I liked fixing problems. I liked building things. I liked making things work. Then do that here. What? Help me build something. Not my bakery. That's mine. But something together. Something that matters. The idea took root slowly. Over the next few days, Damien and Isla started talking about what that could look like. She wanted to open her own place eventually, but she also wanted to do something bigger, something that mattered to the community. What about a baking program? Isla suggested one night. They were in Damien's penthouse, which still looked sterile, but at least now had Isla's presence scattered throughout. Her cookbook on the counter, her sweater draped over the couch, her laughter echoing in the empty spaces. Like the classes we've been doing, but more structured. Teaching people who can't afford culinary school, giving them skills they can actually use. A charity, Damien said. Not a charity, a program with real training, real certification, Something that gives people opportunities they wouldn't have otherwise. Damien looked at her, at this woman who thought about bread in terms of hope and possibility, and felt something click into place. I could fund that. What? I have money. A lot of it. Most of it I don't need, but this is something worth putting it toward. Isla's eyes lit up. You're serious? Completely. We could start small. One location, a few students, see if it works. And if it does, then we expand, more locations, more students, more opportunities. Isla threw her arms around him and Damien caught her, held her close. This is perfect, she said against his chest. This is exactly what I wanted to do but never thought I could. We can do it together. Yeah, together. They spent the next month planning. Isla handled the curriculum, the training structure, the actual baking knowledge. Damien handled the business side, finding a location, hiring staff, setting up the legal structure. It was strange using his skills for something that didn't involve threats or manipulation or fear. But it was also satisfying in a way he hadn't expected. The program launched 3 months later in a small space near the waterfront. They called it Rise, and the name felt right. 10 students in the first class, all people who needed a second chance at something. Isla taught them with the same passion she brought to everything, showing them how to make bread from scratch, how to understand fermentation, how to turn flour and water into something that mattered. Damien watched from the sidelines, handled the logistics, and slowly started to understand what purpose felt like when it wasn't tied to power. One afternoon, a student approached him after class. She was young, maybe 19, with nervous energy and flour permanently embedded under her fingernails. Mr. Moretti? She said hesitantly. Just Damien. Damien, I wanted to thank you for this program. I was working 3 jobs just to survive, and I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And now I feel like maybe I have a shot at something real. Damien didn't know what to say. He'd spent 20 years being thanked for things that were really just business transactions, people expressing gratitude that was really just fear. But this was different. This was genuine. You're welcome, he said, but thank Isla. This was her idea. I will. But you made it happen. That matters. After she left, Damien stood in the empty kitchen and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Pride. Not the cold satisfaction of a successful deal or a defeated rival, but actual pride in something good. Isla found him there 20 minutes later. You okay? Yeah, just thinking. About? About how different this feels. Doing something that helps instead of hurts. Isla moved closer, took his hand. Does it feel good? It feels strange, but yes, good. You're not regretting walking away? No, not even a little bit. She smiled, and in that moment, standing in a kitchen that smelled like fresh bread and new beginnings, Damien understood something fundamental. Power wasn't about control. It wasn't about fear. Real power was being able to change, to choose something different, to build instead of destroy. 6 months after the program launched, Rise had expanded to 2 locations with 30 students. The success stories were starting to pile up. People finding jobs, starting their own businesses, building lives they'd never thought possible. And Isla finally opened her own bakery. It was small, exactly what she'd dreamed of. Big windows, mismatched furniture, a menu that changed based on what she felt like making. She called it Monroe's, and on opening day, the line stretched around the block. Damien stood behind the counter with her, helping where he could, watching her absolutely beam with pride as people tasted her croissants and told her they were perfect. Sophia came, brought half her friends, and bought enough pastries to feed a small army. This is amazing, she said to Isla. Everything I imagined it would be. Thank you for setting up that blind date, Isla said. I know it was supposed to be for Claire, but I'm glad I ended up going instead. Sophia looked at Damien, then back at Isla. I'm glad too. You're good for him. He's actually happy now. It's weird. I can hear you, Damien said. Good. You're supposed to. By the end of the day, Isla was exhausted. Her feet hurt, and she had flour in places flour shouldn't be, but she was glowing. We did it, she said, collapsing into one of the mismatched chairs. We actually did it. Damien sat next to her, pulled her close. You did it. I just helped.
You did more than help. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You made this possible. You would have done it eventually. Maybe, but it wouldn't have been the same without you. They sat there as the sun set through the big windows, exhausted and happy and exactly where they were supposed to be. A week later, Damien had a surprise.
He'd been working on it for months, kept it secret through sheer force of will, which was difficult considering Isla could read him better than anyone. He took her to Monroe's after closing, told her he needed help with something in the kitchen. "What kind of help?" she asked suspiciously. "You'll see." When they walked in, the lights were dimmed, and there was a single table set up in the middle of the bakery with candles and a white tablecloth in two place settings.
"Damien, what is this?"
"Dinner." "I can see that, but why?" "Because I made something for you, and I wanted you to try it."
Isla's eyes widened. "You made something? Like you cooked?"
"I baked."
"You baked?"
"Yes."
"You, Damien Moretti, former crime boss, baked something. Are you going to make fun of me, or are you going to sit down?"
Isla sat, and Damien went into the kitchen. His hands were shaking, which was ridiculous. He'd faced down armed men without flinching. But this, presenting something he'd made to someone who actually knew what good baking looked like, was terrifying. He came back with a plate. On it was a croissant. It was slightly lopsided, the lamination wasn't perfect, and one side was darker than the other. But he'd made it himself, following Isla's recipe, spending hours getting it wrong before finally getting it mostly right. Isla stared at it. "You made this?" "Yes." "Yourself?" "Vincent helped a little, but mostly yes." She picked it up, examined it, then tore off a piece and tasted it. Damien watched her face, trying to read her expression. Finally, she looked up at him, and there were tears in her eyes. "It's perfect." "It's not perfect. The layers are uneven, and I overbaked one side." "It's perfect because you made it. For me." She set down the croissant, stood up, and walked over to him. "Why?" "Because you've given me everything. A new life, a new purpose, a reason to be better. And I wanted to give you something that mattered, something that required attention, something that would fall apart if I wasn't careful." Isla was crying fully now.
"Damien, I love you, Isla. I've loved you since that first morning when you showed up covered in flour and completely unafraid of me. And I want to spend the rest of my life making croissants with you, running programs that help people, building something that matters. But more than anything, I just want you." He got down on one knee, pulled out a ring that Sophia had helped him pick out. "Marry me," he said. "Be with me. Let me be just Damien for the rest of my life. And let me wake up every morning next to someone who sees me as just Damien." Isla was nodding before he even finished. "Yes. Yes, of course, yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, stood up, and kissed her. And in that moment, in a small bakery that smelled like butter and hope, Damien Moretti finally understood what it meant to be whole. Because here's the thing about love that nobody talks about. It's not about finding someone who completes you. You're already complete. You're already whole. Love is about choosing to share that wholeness with someone else, about building something together that's bigger than either of you alone. Damien had spent his whole life believing he needed power to be safe, control to be strong, fear to be respected. But Isla showed him something different. She showed him that real strength was vulnerability. Real power was choosing to change. Real respect came from being honest, being present, being willing to fail at making croissants because it mattered to someone you loved. They got married 3 months later in a small ceremony at Monroe's. Sophia was the maid of honor, Vincent stood up as Damien's best man, and Marcus and Priya cried through the whole thing. The reception was chaotic and loud and full of people from both their worlds. Former associates who'd gone legitimate, students from Rise, customers from the bakery, and Sophia's entire friend group who'd adopted Isla immediately. And at the end of the night, when everyone had gone home and they were cleaning up together, Isla looked at Damien and said, "This is it, isn't it? This is the life we're building." "Yes." "And you're happy?" "I'm terrified and happy and more alive than I've ever been." "Good. Me too." They finished cleaning, locked up the bakery, and walked home through the city streets. Not to Damien's sterile penthouse, but to the apartment they'd found together, bigger than Isla's old place, smaller than Damien's, perfect for them. And as they fell asleep that night, tangled together in sheets that smelled like bread and vanilla,
Damien thought about how strange it was that his life had changed completely because of a blind date neither of them was supposed to be at. But maybe that's how the best things happen. Not according to plan, not following the rules, but in the messy, chaotic, beautiful accidents that force us to become someone different than who we thought we had to be. Damien Moretti had been a lot of things: a crime boss, a feared name, a man who built empires on control and violence. But now he was just Damien. Husband, partner, baker of occasionally acceptable croissants. And that, he decided, was more than enough. Because in the end, we're not defined by the power we hold or the fear we inspire or the empires we build. We're defined by the people we choose to love and the courage it takes to let them love us back. And sometimes, the bravest thing a person can do is walk away from everything they know, choose something uncertain and terrifying and real, and trust that it'll be enough. It was. It always had been.